I, Landon J. Wade, have been appointed to the office of police officer for the city of Chicago, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of such, according to the best of my ability.
Hello, my name is Landon Wade. I am a newly retired Chicago police officer, just retired 6 weeks ago at the rank of Lieutenant of Police. After 26 years of service, the most difficult part of my adult life was stepping down from a job that I have come to absolutely love and adore. Law enforcement, it has undergone such an incredible facelift over the past 7 years. I am honored to have been a part of that change. Watching lawyers go about their busy day preparing documents in support of the laws of this particular city and this state and country was so very exciting to me that I had believed originally that that's the path I wanted to take. While working 6 years at a law firm, I was able to continue my exploration and marvel at the tall skyscrapers, the train systems, the bridges and the waterways. Justice grabbed me right away. The law firm was one of Chicago's biggest, Jenner & Block. While working there, I had made the most important decision of my life, that being in the arena of justice was important to me. My career began in the 24th District. The 24th District was the flagship district of CAPS, Chicago's Alternative Policing Strategy. Community policing, reconfigured, renamed, but always still remaining the cornerstone of policing. We must never forget that police are simply members of a community that have been appointed to turn outward and face those would-be nefarious actors who hope to come into a community and disrupt peace and calm. Never forgetting that edict from beginning in the 24th District, I've carried that CAPS mentality throughout my career. For the past 17 years, I've volunteered on my days off and worked with the State's Attorney's Office as well as other police organizations at area high schools. Most recently, there's a city-backed organization or initiative known as the Law in Your Community. I've worked in that particular lane for approximately 4 years. 2 years ago, I was recruited to be a trainer of the officers going into the schools. These officers came from areas that were not quite as distressed as the areas they were asked to go into. They had to understand the perspective and the expectation of these young learners. The young learners, in turn, had to understand that these guardians dressed in blue were people as well. Creating a dialogue, a platform that allowed an even exchange of ideas, no matter if there was ever an absolute resolution, but to have two groups speak to each other that perhaps would otherwise be unavailable to do so was something that warmed me. Among the most interesting assignments that I had to work when on the Chicago Police Department was my 2 years in the counterterrorism section. During that time, I was a supervising sergeant of police. I was tasked with the responsibility of managing a team of officers who had to pay attention to the movement along the corridors that protect our city's infrastructure. Corridors such as the rail system, the waterways, the highways, and the air. We devised, under my supervision, a system of protecting shoppers along the Mag Mile corridor from persons attempting nationally and globally to harm people with the use of motor vehicles. So a ballard system was implemented and put into place. But far before that strategy was completed, I grabbed a few folks from my team and walked into Argonne National Labs. We use data, we use measurements and industry standards, all the types of data that had been collected from law enforcement agencies across the globe in order to protect citizens. After having worked 4 years in plainclothes, primarily tracking Chicago's most notorious street gangs, I was invited to work in the organized crime division, more specifically the narcotics section. While working in our narcotics section, I was expected to work complex cases directly into major drug traffickers in the Chicago area. The most interesting part about that experience was that I was relied upon to come up with crime strategies to thwart the activities of these continuing criminal enterprise groups. Shortly after working in the narcotics section, I was invited to work and help stand up the newly re-implemented intelligence section, still under the umbrella of organized crime. This section was more covert than my previous assignments. While working in the intelligence section at the rank of sergeant, I was asked to help recruit and develop a team of officers who had not worked those types of investigations before. I continued to hone my personal craft while instructing young officers from all walks of law enforcement into the types of complex investigations that we would be challenged to work. While in that section, I also was asked to go to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office and serve several times as an expert witness in narcotics, packaging, and distribution. The degree at the University of Chicago was a Master's of Science in Threat and Response Management. That degree inspired me to move one step further. I entered into the DePaul University's doctoral program, where I just recently completed my final course of study, and I now stand humbly with a 3.8 grade point average. My dissertation topic and my 2 years of continuous research has been into an area that is very near and dear to myself, as it is to police officers across the nation. It is the examination of continuing traumatic stress disorder on police officers and the overall culture of policing. Proven ideological responses to the types of hazards that are faced by first responders, not specifically police, but to first responders who have uninterrupted stress patterns for 2 decades or more. My research has helped me to develop a system, a mechanism of response. Tragically, for the past 2 years, I spent a bulk of that time in the 5th District. The 5th District suffered an unspeakable amount of loss during that time. My study, my research had taken off into its own arena. I was able to, in real time, apply the principles and the concepts of the data that I had collected into real life conversations with police officers who seemed to need an ear and a voice. My further research will develop into manuals, books, policies, and procedures that will easily be implemented with the constructs that already exist in policing. This would offer little need for any type of new infrastructure. Police officers, like many other vocations, simply need to be prepared to return to the work, the high moral work that we ask them to do on a regular basis. My program would allow officers to, without the stigma that we've experienced, certainly in my time on the job, to express to others exactly what they have been exposed to. The mere exposure to harm isn't a taboo in and of itself. How we decide not to treat it has become the biggest taboo in the industry. We have collectively said enough. What we must do now, and certainly we must employ the assistance of our frontline supervisors. They must be expert in identifying, responding to, and being available to add one extra cause of action for these officers who count on them to become better. Also, offering officers career path advantages. I've talked to officers who's asked me how it is it that I, a young man from the south side of Chicago, has so much energy towards academics and professional success. My answer was simple. If I have to occupy this space and I'm being expected to perform a job at a high level, why wouldn't I keep challenging myself to be incrementally better purposely all the time? Inspiring officers to become better versions of themselves has become a great hobby of mine. I've been asked to help officers write documents such as resumes and personal bios for their professional advancement, and also to just be an ear at a rank that they respect, that would just listen, either to what they expect to be or what they've gone through. In one of my assignments, I was challenged with the responsibility of thwarting criminal activity from would-be anarchist actors. That was in anticipation of the expected 2012 NATO and G8 summits. Those two summits had never been held on U.S. soil before. As it turned out, somewhere during the preparation, Chicago only had to host the single event of NATO. However, my plan had already been put in place for safeguarding the protesters, lawful protesters, citizens of the city of Chicago, as well as police personnel. We were able to successfully thwart a mission, an operation that was fueled by transient anarchists who traveled to many of these types of summits throughout recent history. They disrupted activities in Seattle and also Ontario. Based on after-action report review and data sourcing, I was able to devise a plan that helped to bring to justice 3 of these individuals. With a population totaling in excess of 2.7 million, Chicago has its challenges as it pertains to crime, and certainly violent crime. The types of strategies that would help to alleviate the types of events that we see all too often in this city would require a comprehensive plan. This plan would be introduced not as a new gimmick in policing. However, it would rest solely on the platform of all the initiatives that have proven successful, not just here in Chicago, but across the nation. The program would include, certainly not be limited to, the interaction and intelligence information from community organizations. We must understand that the community will assist the police in efforts when the police allow that door to be open. The police officers must be trained in being compassionate enough to have that conversation on a regular basis with members of the community. Building police supervisors that are equipped with understanding and, to some degree, anticipating critical issues before they even develop. This type of a plan should be the course of action for daily policing. We must instruct, inform, and educate our officers with all of these types of characteristics in mind. I spent 24 consecutive weeks speaking to the mayor's staff while acting in the capacity of commander of the FOIA section. I was tasked with answering 8,500 FOIA requests in one single calendar year. This was critical because it helped me build the capacity to be able to talk to members of city government at the highest levels. The law enforcement community recognizes many executive management schools for certification for managers and leaders to be. One of those schools is Northwestern's School of Police Staff and Command. I am humbled to say that in 2010, I graduated with a group of police executives from that very storied university. My time at Northwestern University taught me a few things that would be vital for the role of superintendent of police. Approaching the crime problem in Chicago requires quite a few mechanics. It requires the proper training for police officers. It also requires an understanding of the systemic history of this type of violence. We have the luxury here in Chicago of having so many innovative technological advances towards crime prevention. We have stood up SDSC rooms that allow us in real time to not just track violent crime through our video systems, but also to rely on ShotSpotter technology, which tracks all the way down to one single gunshot in an approximate geographical area to help our police officers be able to respond in a safe manner and to stop the public from being unnecessarily at risk. We must rely on those innovations and this technological surge in policing. But we must also understand that the best police work has always and will always be done with boots on the ground, men and women who understand that though we face a foe who oftentimes ignore all the rules of order, we must always stand on firm moral ground while bringing to justice these bad actors. Understanding that ours is not the job for judgment, ours is the job for response. We must appropriately apply justice's credo by educating and informing our officers to display on a regular basis the morality that brought them to this profession in the first place. We must empower them with the knowledge that this chosen group of guardians are the light for the community and certainly the young people in our community. We must restore the dignity to this office, police officers, in a way that it was always meant to be. We are not just self-serving this incredible job bank of ours, but that we also are serving proudly people who are counting on us. The course that I took over the last 2.5 decades was anything but accidental. There was no accident in the passion that I possess for law enforcement and for justice. There was no accident that my police career started before I even wore the uniform. And there's certainly no accident in my intentions moving forward. I was trying to figure out the best place to showcase my passion for policing. Where is that Chicago place? And I realized the Chicago place that best displays my passion for this job and this community lies deep in my heart. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it. My name is Landon J. Wade.